Message from the Israelite Brotherhood. Message from the Israelite Brotherhood. Message from the Israelite Brotherhood. Alright, Hebrews. We're going to do this one on the Jews because, we need to understand who the Jews are. A lot of Hebrews call themselves Jews and not knowing who the Jews are. Everybody know ain't no J that was in the Hebrew alphabet. But besides that, the Jews are a people. The Jews are a people. And it's two sets of Jews that all Jews come from. We Hebrews got to get the understanding of who the Jews is because, most Hebrews think that the Jews started with the Khazars. They're junk crazy. And those are Jewish myths. And the Israelite Brotherhood always exposing the Jewish myths, showing you what the Jewish myths are. The myths that keep you confused and keep you from coming into heritage. Alright, it's two set of Jews, Ashkenazi and the Sephardims. And Ashkenazi code name in history was Scythian. And the Sephardi groups, Sephardic, and Sephardim, they are from Sephardim. Sephardim is the Hebrew word. It's probably the only word in the Bible ain't get translated, and on the computer, if you type in Sephardim, it's going to translate into Sephardi. One day they're going to probably try to change that because they're trying to get rid of all the evidence showing that they are not the Israelites. And it's getting slim. It's hard to find. It's hard to find some evidence showing that these folks are not Israelites. Is because the Sephardi groups, the Sephardims, were Babylonian scribes. And most Hebrews don't understand what that is and don't even have a clue what a Babylonian scribe is. And that's the missing piece, the biggest missing piece out of your history, and what is keeping you from understanding real history is that most people don't know who the Babylonian scribes is, and we abandon our heritage to them. And I'm talking about that's something serious. That's something real serious, man. It's the most serious thing that happened to us besides us breaking the covenant. Us breaking the covenant was the most, important issue or event that ever happened in our lives. You know what I'm saying? The Hebrew lives, what our ancestors did. We paying the price for it. And what they did, they broke the covenant for Egyptian religion. And when they did that, they allowed the Babylonian scribes to get our heritage. And man, I'm talking about, when the Creator said that your heritage would be blotted out, well, it had to be some peoples that had the wisdom and the cunning and the ability to blot our heritage out. And that was them Babylonian scribes. And what's so cold about them is, it's a lot going on, Hebrews. It's a lot going on. But I'm going to try to show you this history, and I pray to Almighty Yah that you get some type of understanding, because it's important to understand this. Because if we don't understand this, then you ain't finna ever understand Hebrew history. Yeah, you know that we the Hebrews and that we was cursed. Yeah, that's good enough. But it's a bigger picture. It's actually a picture of the people who did the acts to bring us into these conditions. And they history is still around, but it's disappearing. It's disappearing fast. And they've been misleading the world. That's like all the Bibles that's been passed out and printed, millions of them. Man, that was a game that they had popped on the world because, after them taking on our heritage and being of white skin, a non-pigmented people, and then they was viewed as the chosen people, then the world thought that they was the chosen people because they the people that translated the history and been in control of Hebrew history. But I'm going to show you Hebrews what happened. You know, you have to go to the book of 2 Kings. 2 Kings chapter 17 verse 24. It's important to understand this. It's important to understand this because if you understand this, then you can understand what happened to us. Alright. 2 Kings chapter 17 verse 24. You see that name Sephardim right there? Those are the Sephardi Jews. Those are the Sephardi Jews, and they was placed in our land while we was on Egyptian religion. See, the northern kingdom was on Egyptian religion all the way from Jeroboam. You know, the Egyptians tricked us. You know, and these Sephardims from Babylon are slick Amorites because the Amorites are the founders of Babylon. But it get even deeper than that because these people history go all the way back to Nimrod. You know, they part of the Hamite family groups. Canaan kids was born with Tazarat, and then they mix with the Nephilims and the Raphilims, Cain descendants that didn't have no pigmentation. You know, and they would mix with other Hamites to get a little bit pigmentation back, but basically they was a non-pigmented people, and the Amorites were a non-pigmented people too, as well as the Jebusites and a whole bunch of other ones. You know, even though they mixed with other people because they had mixed with the Raphilims and Nephilims in Sodom and Gomorrah, and them people, the Nephilims and the Raphilims, gonna come from the Caucasus Mountain. And then they came and settled in Babylon and then moved on down towards, you know, as close as far as they can get into Africa as they could. And they kind of hung out in the mountains and stuff. You know, it's like whenever you see in the Tanakh that the Amorites hanging out in the mountain, that's going to be them folks mixed with them other folks. You know, back then they didn't have air conditioners and suntan lotion. And you know, they didn't have too many ways to escape the heat in the sun beaming down on you. You know, that'll wear them folks out, and they couldn't have perished. You know what I'm saying? They would have perished. You know, so them people took to the mountains and stayed on the coastline where the breeze was, and you know what I'm saying, and all that stuff. But mostly in the mountains. You're gonna find them in the mountains where it's cold and cool, and there's some caves and stuff to hide in. Well, that's what those Nephilims and Raphilims did, and they mixed with the Amorites. Okay, the Amorites' heritage will go from Canaan, the Promised Land, all the way to Mesopotamia. You know, on the Euphrates. You know, and them folks, the Sephardims, that's where they come from. They come from this place called Sipper. Let me see, I know I got a map somewhere. Alright, Sipper. Alright, you know what I'm saying? You see Sipper? That's short for Sephardim. That's where the Sephardi Jews are from. Sephardi is the broader term for Sephardic and Sephardim. The Sephardim gonna be the mostly ones that mix with the Edomites real bad. You know, the people that's in the Arabic countries. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna mix with them Edomites real bad. And then they got the Sephardic, those gonna be the ones that mix mostly with Europeans. Got a, you know, a Ashkenazi element to them. Okay, and Sephardim is where they was from, Sipper, and they was the scribes. They was the scribes for the whole Babylonian history. The whole Babylonian history. And Amorite is a word that means westerner. The whole Western civilization and how it functioned basically come from them. Come from them and come from Babylon. You know, it's like how they do business, keeping contracts, having lawyers and judges, you know, all that predate the Israelites, and us coming into heritage and setting up our own, you know, laws, you know, that the Creator gave us, which was an anti-Egyptian and Babylonian culture that the Creator gave us, you know, that Moses gave us, the covenant. You know, it was basically to get rid of these folks and their culture. You know, well, the Canaanite culture, those Amorites, you know, they culture, you know, 2400 BC. And the Canaanite control over Babylon, 22 BC. And Prophet Abraham, our father, get on down from Mesopotamia, you know, around about 2091 BC, and start to come into the promised land, because the Creator told him that, you know, he would get that in his descendants. And what we were supposed to do was to replace the Canaanites and get rid of their evil wickedness. You know what I'm saying? That's like the culture that go on now today, that gay stuff, the lesbian and gay stuff, and how them folks done took over and basically run this whole country now and got all the power. Where that come from? Babylon. You know, those Babylonian Jews that control America, that control this country, you know, they putting their culture in place as they did when they first got here. You know, they gonna be the founders of America, coming from Spain. The conquistadors wasn't nothing but Jews, Sephardi Jews, and they come, you know, to America, South America, especially South America. They the landowners in South America, all the drugs and cocoa fields and all that. The conquistadors and the Jews been in control of South America since the Spaniards come over and took South America. Those gonna be the landowners. You know, that's where you're gonna find a significant quantity of Sephardi Jews, and of that branch, you know, Ashkenazi there too, is because they the first to take over South America and get the land from the natives. And then, you know, they mix with the natives in Mexico, and that produced the Hispanic race. You know, the whole race come from off the, you know, Jews from Spain mixing with the natives. And then they took America over. You know, they got the land from the natives, and they became the landowners of America. So that Babylonian system that was in Babylon, and the Creator said Babylon would be destroyed. Well, them people took that on the road, and came on over to the west. And they are Westerners already from being Amorites. They the founders of the Western civilization. So they just laid their roots and built their empire and got everything popping that was in Babylon and in the east. They got it popping here in the west. Okay, them people are the founders of Sodom and Gomorrah. And when you read the biblical history about Sodom and Gomorrah, you dealing with an Amorite created civilization. And we know what the Creator did to them. And that's like when we come out of Egypt, we were supposed to get rid of them folks, and we didn't do it. And we end up getting destroyed for mixing with them. And not only destroyed, we got enslaved, because they enslaved us. Even though you could walk around now and think you can do what you want to do, your mind is in prison. Your mind is in prison, and they are masters at locking folks' minds down, because they got like 4,000 years of creating civilization with writing, meanings of word, administration. It's like every college in the Western Hemisphere, every college and school in the Western Hemisphere, and what you call Western civilization come from them. They are the founders of every college, and they are the founders of every meaning of words. You know, that's like that word black. They created that in them. You know what I'm saying? You can go to Webster Dictionary, and they took the word black and turned it into evil, destruction, death, no good, no accomplishment. And then we call ourselves by the titles that they created. And when you fall into their mental consciousness with their words, then you get absorbed in it and you become a slave and you lose your soul. That's like all them black folks that's mixing with them folks in Hollywood, projecting the images that they want to project in the community. Well, them folks being agents and causing us to stay in captivity and lose our soul. And them folks are the creator of money, capitalism. If you look up capitalism, and capitalism come from Babylon. The Babylonians invented capitalism, and they invented banking. The banking system come from them. The Amorites, the Sepharvims, are the founders of Babylon. They the founders of Babylon. They the founders of Babylon. So all the banking institutions and how they, came and borrowed money in exchange for their crops later on. Well, all that's been going on for thousands of years, and how to run the government with the police agencies and the armies. They've been doing that for thousands of years. And then that's how they know how to stay in the cut and stay in the back where you can't see them, and then they function from out of sight. Is because they got thousands of years of doing this, creating governments and history and colleges to support whatever meaning that they want words or the world to view their meanings. Man, they set up all that. All the institutions. And then it really came up is when they took Egypt over. Oh man, they took Egypt over. And then some Hebrews, people be saying, well, we can't find nothing with Israel in Egypt. Yeah, I know why. Because them folks, the Babylonian scribes, got into Egypt after the Satai history. When the Satai history ended around about 525 BC, they start coming in because the Babylonians had took Egypt over. That's what they kinfolks. Wherever the Babylonians took over, the Sephardi's got free reign because the Babylonians were them. They was working through proxy. Yeah, they had armies and other peoples from the other nations in their armies, but how the Babylonians function and how the government was set up after they took a land, that come from them Sepharvims. You know what I'm saying? That come from the Sephardi's. Okay, them people from Babylon was set up the whole Western, the whole Western civilization. The whole Western civilization. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. Oh, okay. Now, the Babylonians come from, the Sepharvims come from Cyprus. And then let's see what they got to say, because they'll tell you too. They'll tell you because they know that the world is so far gone and so confused with the history and the images and how they done taught the world through their schools and colleges. And then, they know that basically everybody is fooled and don't know what's going on, deceived. And that's why when they took our heritage and got in control of our heritage, they whole job and what they've been trying to do is trying to keep us from coming into heritage. They don't want us to ever come into heritage, because us coming into heritage mean the end of the lies and the tricks that they've been popping for thousands of years. They've been popping for thousands of years, way past since Prophet Abraham days. They go back all the way back to after the flood, when Babylon was set up. Okay, now let's look. Let's see. All right, they'll tell you, but they slick now. You can't never expect the truth from them, and they ain't gonna never give you all the truth. They ain't gonna never give you all the truth about the Israelites, is because they've been pretending to be the Israelites. This is how they rule the world. They got everybody thinking that they the Hebrews, and then being a non-pigmented people and passing all them Bibles around, and then having control of our heritage. The whole world think that they are the Hebrews, and that's not so. All right. Cyprus was suggested as the location of the biblical Sepharvim of the Old Testament, the Tanakh, which alludes to two parts of the city in its dual form. All right, the other part of the city, it is going to be Nipper and Sipper. You couldn't be a king nowhere in the Mesopotamian area if you didn't get it from Nipper. You know, that's why they consecrated the kings in the library of everything that ever happened in Babylon since after the flood was in Sepharvaim and around them parts. That's why come when they invaded Iraq, you know, we know the United States is controlled by them. Even though they not in the army, this country couldn't function without its currency, without the currency that they created. Okay, during the Iraqi wars, they bombed that place up so much that, man, they tried to bomb the whole everything up because they cuneiform texts that they had, that the information in history would possibly lead to them. And then they know we finna come into heritage. They destroyed a whole bunch of stuff. That's why come it's been war in Babylon, is because they've been trying to get rid of all the history and the evidence that's gonna show who they are, and they're trying to get rid of it. So when we come into heritage, that we won't years later start, you know, building our picture of what happened to us and the things that went on in the past and so forth. Because, you know, we're going to study our enemies thoroughly. So they getting rid of the evidence now before we come into heritage. Okay, and then they think some of them think we ain't going to come into heritage. And this should prove them wrong by the history that I'm laying down, the Israelite Brotherhood laying down. So, you know, if I know it, some more Hebrews finna know it too, know it already. But I don't think that the Hebrew Israelite organizations, them camps, they ain't on this level. See, they ain't on this level. All right. So them Babylonian scribes, you know, they translated our history, and they got the power, you know, the power of the Babylonian scribes, the Amorite Sephardists. This is how your whole Hollywood is set up. All the writers and everything, they control every aspect of this country. Every meaningful aspect of this country they control. And they are Amorites, and they was placed in our land during the Babylonian wars, when we were slipping on Egyptian religion. You know, we were slipping on Egyptian religion since Jeroboam brought that mess out of Egypt. You know, I think all them folks was working together to try to keep us out of heritage. You know, all them folks was working together to try to keep us from coming into the covenant. You know, from keeping the covenant, because our covenant meant they destruction. So if we coming into our heritage and we doing the things that the Creator told us to do, then that mean it was the end of the wickedness and the evilness that them folks had going on and they little civilization and stuff, you know. All right, and the king of Assyria, this is 2 Kings chapter 17, verse 24. And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon and from Cuddar and from Abel and from Hamath and from Sepharvaim and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. Okay, them folks came to Jerusalem. See, they'll try to trick you and think you and make you think that the Sumerians are the people that's there now today, and that was them. No, the Sephardists were Amorites, and they had free reign of the whole promised land, and they just wasn't confined to Samaria. As I could show under King Hezekiah, that them folks came to the Passover dinner. If you go to Second Chronicles 30, verse 25, you'll see that the strangers, this is in 715 BC. This is 7 years after them folks was placed, that King Hezekiah tried to get everybody to come to the Passover, because he was trying to get us to come to the Passover so we can straighten up, you know, and try to follow the laws and do what we supposed to. And then as you read King Hezekiah's history, 2 Chronicles chapter 30, you will also see that it's no 10 lost tribes. You know, that it was no lost tribes, and that all the Hebrews were still at home. I'm going to try to get that in too. You see, the people we abandon our heritage to, the Sephardies, the Sepharvims, when we abandoned our heritage to them during the Babylonian wars, like 134 years after they was placed, we Hebrews ran into Africa, all the tribes. And when we ran into Africa to live, to do the Egyptian worship, and we abandoned our heritage to them folks. And them folks were scribes from Babylon, had about 3,000 years of writing history and governments, bookkeepings, and everything. Creating encyclopedias, dictionaries with the meanings and all that. They've been had there for thousands of years. So when we went into Africa and left our heritage to them, then it was over with. They was going to blot our heritage out. And they blotted our heritage out. You see what I'm saying? Because we only had like 820 years in the promised land, from the Exodus from Egypt to getting into the promised land. We only had about 800 years on the promised land. And that wasn't enough time to leave any type of culture that would last, that you could see who the real Hebrews is today. Because when we got into the promised land, we was basically on those folks' religion as well as the Egyptian religion, probably for like 500 years of the 800 years that we supposed to had, did the covenant in the promised land. That's messed up. That's awful. So we never did get no roots. Our roots never got sunk in. Our roots never got sunk into the promised land because we didn't stay there no time. And then the Amorites had been there since after the flood. After the flood, with a civilization and a culture. I got history showing how the Creator found old Tazareth Amorite, throwed out, how Cain and them had his kids and then throwed them out in the field and left them, and how the Creator went and saved the Amorite, and gave them a civilization. And then how they turned wicked and evil, and that's going to be Sodom and Gomorrah, the lesbian and gay camps. And then how the Creator destroyed them and then set out to destroy the Amorites. And that's what Prophet Abraham come into the picture, and that's what his descendants were supposed to do. But them folks tricked us, and we fell off, and we paying the price for it right now today. But like I said, in 2 Kings chapter 30, verse 25, this showed that them people moved all around the promised land when we was there. So they just wasn't confined to Samaria, like they'll try to make you think that the Samaritans today in the biblical in Tanakh history is the Samaritans that's there today in the promised land that don't run nothing. You see what I'm saying? Now, the Sepharvims was placed in Samaria, but they was Amorites, and they was from Babylon and the promised land. So, they just wasn't confined to Samaria. And that's what people are confused by that there alone. All right, this is 2 Kings 30, verse 25. And all the congregation of Judah with the priests and the Levites, and all the congregation that come out of Israel, and the strangers that come out of the land of Israel that dwell in Judah, rejoice. You see what I'm saying? So Judah, that part of the promised land, was already them folks land already. Was already them folks land already. Man, and I can show this real easy. Real easy. Alright, look, you see this where it say the Amorites from 20 to 14 BC, man, how they held that part of the promised land, and then how the Amorites, and then that's gonna be close to Syria. Syria was they part, and all that lead into Babylon, and then Assyria was just at the top of that. All right, you see the Amorites. All right, and then they would control. They would have land adjacent to the Edomites, and they lived in the same spot that the Edomites lived in too, and they would all mix and become one. They would all mix and become one. So them Amorites been in control of the promised land. We never did drive them out. So when them Babylonian scribes, the Sephardies that was Amorites already, placed back in the promised land, then it was like they was being reunited with their homeland. And that's another thing with the DNA thing. You know, they be tricking folks because they be using they bones, the Amorite bones that's been there since forever, because the Amorites are the founders of the promised land, and those Jews share the same DNA as the Amorites. Though the Sephardi Jews share the same gene as the Amorites because they Amorites. It's just that they was from Babylon. So then when people say, well, the Jews are the real inhabitants of the land in Israel and they them, no, they being tricked because we abandon our heritage to the Babylonian scribes, which I'm gonna show we abandoned our heritage to them, and they was Amorites already. So when they start saying that they was Israel and they was really Amorites, and then you go digging in the land and you find them bones, then them bones gonna match them. So that's a big old con game that they've been popping for a long time. And then that's why we have to trust the Tanakh Hebrews. And then that's why the Creator told the prophet Jeremiah this. And this was during our last time in the promised land when we got kicked out. You know, the Creator told the prophet Jeremiah this. So we know that they ain't gonna ever have no DNA. They ain't gonna never have no DNA for the ancient Hebrews like prophet Abraham and our forefathers, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, the prophets. They ain't gonna never have their DNA. And they ain't gonna never have their DNA. It's the reason why come they took their bones and they say, oh, this the Hebrews and these are the Israelites, because they are Amorites and that's their land. You see what I'm saying? But this is what the Creator says. So he'll fix everything. It was fixed already before we came in the heritage. All right. This is Jeremiah 8. At that time said the Elohim, they shall bring out the bones of the kings of Judah, and the bones of his princes, and the bones of the priests, and the bones of the prophets, and the bones of the inhabitants of Jerusalem out of their graves. And they shall spread them before the sun and the moon and all the host of heaven, whom they have loved and whom they have served, and after whom they have walked, and whom they have sought, and whom they have worshipped. They shall not be gathered, they shall not be gathered nor be buried. They shall be for dung upon the face of the earth. Oh man, so you know you ain't finna get no Hebrew bones, and we know that our forefathers was buried in them areas. You know what I'm saying? So you know basically you wasn't finna get no Hebrew bones out of the land of Canaan, for the simple fact that the Babylonians came in first. The Syrians probably done dug some graves up looking for some gold because they had it bad. They was hoping to pay them Scythians off, probably. All right, we know the Babylonians dug up the graves. We know the Babylonians dug up the graves. We know the Persians dug up the graves looking for gold because we had a lot of gold and we were buried. Our stuff with us, our gold and stuff probably get buried with us. We had so much, so they would look into the graves. The Greeks really tore up all the graves looking, and the Romans tore up the graves. Man, you got about five empires or six empires that lived in the promised land, not counting all the other folks that come from Europe that moved in digging up the graves. You know what I'm saying? They about knew where we was buried at, and they dug up all those graves and left all those bones out, just like the Creator said. And the Sephardi scribes knew to do that. And that's what happened and stuff. So you ain't gonna never get no Hebrew DNA. You ain't gonna never get no Hebrew DNA. And them folks real slick when they come with that old DNA stuff and then try to say, well, our DNA match the land. So, you know, and then they the people who set up the whole governments and the whole institutions of DNA. And they've been controlling the medical fields since the Egyptians' lights was put out. You see what I'm saying? So that's why come, you know, when people say, well, the Jews got a whole lot of culture with medicine and creating things, is because they got all that technology from Egypt after they, you know, got in there during the Greek times. They was the only people that could translate the hieroglyphs in the Egyptian history, being that the Babylonians had a correspondence between Egypt and Babylon. That's why it was easy for them to go in there and to destroy the real history of the Hebrews in Egypt. And they had hundreds of years to do it. thousands of years now, and it was complete. All right, them Babylonian scribes, with that DNA stuff, slick, because the Amorites, the Sephardi Jews, are from Babylon, and they, placed there, in their homeland, and then they get our history, and then it's easy to find they little graves and they DNA there, because they are the original inhabitants of the land. So that's been a con game. And then when they try to connect us and say, well, y'all got African DNA. Well, how about that we was in Egypt and that Joseph had Asenath, who had Ephraim and Manasseh. You see what I'm saying? So, we going to have African DNA. We going to have African DNA. And that's going to be something you going to be able to see easy, Turn right to it. All praise be Almighty Yah. All right, and this is basically the time when Joseph was tricked by Pharaoh. The Pharaohs didn't believe in the Creator. I got that documented in a whole bunch of videos, how Pharaoh, when Prophet Moses went in there to ask us to get released, and how Pharaoh said, man, who is this God that the Israelites got to go worship? I don't know him. You know what I'm saying? They ain't got nothing to do with that. And Pharaoh wouldn't let us go. And Pharaoh, said that he didn't believe in the Creator. All right. This is Genesis 41. This showed that we got some African DNA. So it wouldn't be nothing to connect us to the Sub-Sahara, because Asenath, the priest of On, and the Mishwish tribes, the people who controlled Lower Egypt, was from the Sahara. Basically, the Egyptian was from the Sahara. And I can show that we went back to Egypt in our last days. So, we got some Sahara roots from Joseph. Let me see. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zephaniah Penina, and gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. And Joseph went out all over Egypt. Okay. And unto Joseph was born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, born to him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for Yah had said, he had made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second called he Ephraim, for Yah had caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. Man, how about Joseph having those 2 sons? He was being tricked when he was given Asenath as wife. That's the priest of On daughter. And I'm going to show y'all some with so treacherous, Hebrews, that these folks is so cold and so much wickedness going on, and that if you don't understand who the Babylonian scribes is, you ain't finna understand no real Hebrew Israelite history, and you just gonna be stuck on the myths that they created. All the history outside the Tanakh is that they created are myths. Man, they got so many myths going that, man, Hebrews get lost in there and they don't never know no truth, because them folks is deep, man. They been had civilization and being able to pop game on folks for thousands of years before we got a heritage. Okay, you see this obelisk right there. That obelisk right there was taken from Egypt, from the same place where Joseph got had the 2 kids, Asenath, the priest of On. But what's so significant about this obelisk is that this obelisk was set up when Pharaoh, and around about 1450 BC, when we was in bondage in Egypt. And this obelisk was set up when Pharaoh had gave the order to kill all the firstborn of the Hebrews. And how about they got a twin? It's a twin one of these that's in London. And then they got some more associated with it. That one that's in Paris, it's in London, one in France, one in the UK, and one in America. Those going to be the main power seats of the beast. And them the main ones that just participated in the slave trade that got us to come to this country and stuff. I'm going to show you Hebrews. This, man, it's messed up. Because, that obelisk that they got in New York called the Cleopatra needle, that's a misnomer. Look, check this history out. All right, Cleopatra needle. All right, all right. Cleopatra needle is the popular name for each of three ancient obelisks re-erected in London, Paris, and New York City during the 19th century. They brung them over, and they've been around by 18 something, not too far after we was released from slavery. They had completed they coup over our head where we was brainwashed, and then they was installing the Egyptian system. After they done beat us and worked us during the slavery days like Egypt did, now they was finna put their beliefs in their other stuff in us after they done vacated our mind and took our good senses out. Now they finna put they way in us after the slavery days, and that's when these obelisks was set up. Like I said, one of the obelisks, the Cleopatra needle, that one was set up during the time that the pharaohs ordered the kids to be killed. Our kids to be killed during Exodus. All the firstborn, that genocide. And that's what that the abortions and all that stuff. That's where that come from. That's when they finna set the abortions up and start that process. And that's what them obelisks is tied into. All right, the obelisks in London and New York are a pair. The one in Paris is also part of a pair originally from a different site in Luxor where its twin remains. So they all connected. You know what I'm saying? Although all three needles are genuine ancient Egyptian obelisks, they shared nickname is a misnomer, as they have no connection with the Ptolemy Queen Cleopatra of Egypt, and were already over thousands of years old in her lifetime. You see what I'm saying? Now, what they're not going to tell you is that Pharaoh set them up when they started the genociders and started the abortion. That's when they come with the obelisk. And then this statue right here is the statue of Necho. Necho is going to be the king that killed the prophecy king, King Josiah. This is a statue of him. So, they got the statue of the beginning of our enslavement in Egypt, and then they got a statue of a person when we got free of the Egyptian religion, how he killed King Josiah and put us back on Egyptian religion, and we were running to Africa and be enslaved. And then that's when we abandoned our heritage to the Sephardi Jews. I'm gonna show this. We abandoned our heritage to them. All right. So we know that Joseph had, two sons that had, African DNA, from their mama's side and stuff. And how, our father Abraham, Jacob, everybody dwelled in Egypt. And, I got a video showing that after we exited Egypt, how we always wanted to return. That's a video that's out showing how we kept wanting to go back to Africa. Egypt ain't nothing but the Sahara. And the Sahara is what they slick called us. All right, so we see that Joseph got Antoinette, and then all this come from after Joseph answered Pharaoh's dreams. Pharaoh seen that his whole religious system is at stake. You see what I'm saying? And that they didn't have the true God. Them folks, them Egyptians had lost their way. And I got some videos showing how the Egyptians, hated the covenant that we had because they had to do trade across the promised land. So that was one of the reasons why the Egyptians kept us on their religion, because if we wasn't on their religion, then they couldn't trespass, and that mean the death of Egypt, meaning that they couldn't do no trade with their relatives and kinfolks in Asia and Mesopotamia and in the Eastern nations. So us having that covenant that was anti-Egyptian and anti-Babylonian, with the Creator standing behind us, it was the end of Egypt. We was finna kill the Egyptians, and they kept us on their religion. That's like when Joseph, son Ephraim, I could show you that, when Solomon was so wicked. I got a video showing this, and that's another Babylonian scribe myth trying to say that Solomon was a wise king when Solomon wasn't wise at all. And Solomon was basically, the person that brung us down, because after Solomon had all them wives, and especially that Egyptian wife, and built her a house near the temple, or built a temple for her to worship in, man, that brung us down. And then there was this brother named Jeroboam that was from the tribe of Ephraim. Solomon gonna chase him into the Egyptian's hand, the Egyptian king hand, who gonna probably school him and say, hey man, we relatives, man. Here, take this golden calf out and push that, and I'll stand behind you. And Solomon ain't gonna be able to do nothing to you, or they ain't gonna be able to do nothing to you long as you worshiping what we worshiping. And then Jeroboam come out with them 2 golden calves and put them on the northern kingdom, and we stayed on it for 300 years, from 931 BC to the time that King Josiah was born, around about 631 BC. He started cleaning up around about 640 BC, and we was on Egyptian religion for 300 years. And then King Josiah was born, and then we got off Egyptian religion for 30 years, and then the Egyptians come kill him. I don't care how they write it up, slick. They come kill him, and then put us back on Egyptian religion, and we go into Africa, and we stay there till our enslavement come down. And that's how we, did all the curses, and we took into all the nations that them folks had set up, and then set up way before we came and stuff. And then they come got us and brung us over there. The Babylonian scribes knew that we had ran into Africa after the Babylonian wars, because they gonna send the Greeks in and start documenting us and trying to get up with us. And then we, the Greeks let the Romans in, and the Romans come in, in the Sahara, tried to mess with the Gramentians and them folks, them the first derogatory name that they gave us in Africa, and started trying to bother them, and we would whoop them folks for a good long time until them Edomites came in with Islam. And then, man, they tore our mouth out, and then, we started falling, and then them other folks come from Europe, Ashkenaz and them did, from Spain, and they got us. And brother Tony Martin, Dr. Tony Martin, tell you about the Jews in the transatlantic slave trade, how they controlled it. That's a fact. That's a documented fact. And they trying to get away from all that. They don't want none of that discussed. And yes, them folks control the slave trade, and they brung us here. All right, so Solomon gonna chase us into Egypt. Solomon gonna chase Jeroboam into Egypt, and Jeroboam gonna come out with the 2 golden calves. You go to 1 Kings chapter 11. All right. Look, this showed that Jeroboam was from the tribe of Ephraim, and Jeroboam, son of Nebat, a Ephraite of Zerudah, Solomon's servant, whose mother's name was Zerah, a widow woman, even he lifted up his hand against the king. All right. And Solomon sought therefore to kill Jeroboam, and Jeroboam arose. That's because Solomon was wicked, and he was doing everything that he shouldn't have been doing, and that's gonna make everybody fall off and folks not want to follow him. So Solomon sought therefore to kill Jeroboam, and Jeroboam arose and fled into Egypt unto Shushan, king of Egypt, and was there in Egypt until the death of Solomon. So that's going to be his relative. Shushan is from the Mishwish tribes. Those going to be the people from the Sahara, from the west of the Africa, not the Nubian stock that controlled Upper Egypt, but from the lower Egypt stock that was from the Sahara, from West Africa, Libya, and so forth. All right. So when Solomon died, Jeroboam come out with them 2 golden calves and put it on the northern kingdom. Whereupon the king took counsel and made 2 calves of gold, and said unto them, it is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Behold thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. See, so he put the 2 golden calves on us, and then the prophecy for King Josiah come about right then, and we will be on the Egyptian religion for 300 years. And behold, there came a man of Yah out of Judah by the word of the Elohim unto Bethel, and Jeroboam stood by the altar to burn incense, and he cried against the altar in the word of the Elohim, and said, O altar, altar, this saith the Elohim, behold, a child shall shall be born unto the house of David, Josiah by name, and upon thee shall he offer the priests of the high places that burn incense upon thee, and men's bones shall be burnt upon thee. All right, 300 years now. We on the Egyptian religion for 300 years. We on the Egyptian Amorite, Canaanite religions for 300 years. Messed up, our mouth tore out. We going through all kind of hardships, all kind of folks dying and suffering. And then King Josiah is born. He born. You see what I'm saying? And then he would clean that mess up. And then Prophet Jeremiah come around in the 13th year. And this show you that all the tribes was here too. I'm going to show that all the tribes was here. All right. And Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 31 years, and he did that which was right in the sight of the Elohim, and walked in the ways of David his father, and declined neither to the right hand nor to the left. But in the 8th year of his reign, while he was yet young, he began to seek after the Yah of David his father. And in the 12th year he began to purge Judah and Jerusalem from the high places and groves and the carved images and the molten images. And they break down the altar of Baalim in his presence, and the images that were on high above them. He cut down in the groves and the carved images and the molten images. He brake in pieces and made dust of them, and stowed it upon the graves of them that had sacrificed unto them. And he burnt the bones of the priests upon their altars, and cleansed all Judah and Jerusalem. See what I'm saying? So did he in the cities of Manasseh and Ephraim and Simon, even unto Naphtali, with their mattucks round about. All right, he gonna clean up the whole Israel. He gonna clean up the whole Israel. He gonna clean up the whole kingdom. And them Jews gonna sit quiet. Them folks that's placed in Samaria, they gonna lay it down. They gonna keep quiet, and they gonna lay low. And then the Egyptians come out. 33 years King Josiah reigned. So they laying low, and then the Egyptians come out and kill King Josiah, and then put us back on the Egyptian religion. See, put us on the Egyptian religion, and then we will go into Africa. All right, now you see them tribes that I named. This is after the Assyrian captivity. So he cleaned up all Israel. And return home. So it wasn't no 10 lost tribes. You see, like I said, we abandoned our heritage to some Babylonian scribes, so they created a lot of myths. That's like if you go to Second Chronicles 30, you're going to see that King Hezekiah dealing with all the Israelites, all the tribes there besides the ones not mentioned that his great-grandson, King Josiah, mentioned. The ones that wasn't mentioned here are going to be mentioned during King Josiah's time, and it wasn't never no 10 lost tribes, you know what I'm saying? And as you read down, so the post went with the letters from the king and his princes throughout all Israel and all Judah, according to the commandment of the king, saying, ye children of Israel, turn again unto the Elohim of Yah of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, and he will return to the remainder of you that are escaped out of the hands of the king of Syria. So it never was no 10 lost tribes, and those are myths that the Babylonian scribes created after we abandoned our heritage and went into Egypt during the prophet Jeremiah time. And prophet Jeremiah time, he was around during King Josiah time. Like I said, the Egyptians killed King Josiah. So if all the tribes was around during King Josiah time, that they'll be around during prophet Jeremiah time, because he was around during King Josiah time. You see what I'm saying? So the word of Jeremiah, the son of Hilkiah, the priest that were in Anath in the land of Benjamin, to whom the word of the Elohim came in the days of Josiah, the son of Amon, king of Judah, and in the 13th year of his reign. So he was there. Prophet Jeremiah was there. And after them Egyptians killed King Josiah, we will go into Africa. And the book of Jeremiah is a must read, because it was our last act on the promised land. It was our last act on the promised land. And for the 99% that ran into Africa, we know that it was some of us got captured and took into Babylon. And that's a whole separate history. And when they come back from Babylon, They was destroyed so fast. The Greeks knocked them off so fast that I got history of the Lycimus, the Ptolemies, and all them claiming Israelite heritage. And then I got proof showing that people was taken from the promised land under Tigrinus the Great to Armenia, and that none of them was black or Hebrews. So something had to happen to the exiles when they come back home. And then that's the book of Ezra, Nehemiah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. Those 5 prophets cover the exiles. And the exiles was mixing, and they couldn't pass heritage on to the enemies. So they got knocked off real fast. You see how them Palestinians is getting it, and how they land is getting took over there? Well, it happened to the exiles so fast that they got wiped out. They wasn't nothing but a little bit, and prophet Isaiah tell you their whole history before it happened. All right, if you go to Jeremiah chapter 44, verse 15, 16, 17, and 18 is a state of mind, and this is when we abandon our heritage to the Sephardi groups. And it was Ashkenazi under the name Scythian that chased us out the promised land. And I got videos showing how they come in there with them horses. Man, you know what I'm saying? How they come in there on them horses with them body parts. With them body parts on their horses. You see what I'm saying? And how we would see them and be terrified. Them folks riding around and with them bodies on them horses. And then they'll make cut your head off and make a bone out of it, and then they'll take your skin and make clothes out of it, make patches out of it. You see what I'm saying? That's why them folks being black today and have black on today, because back in the days they used to catch you and cut your skin off, and sure enough, there it is. But on the real, them folks chased us out the land, and they was terrible. In the book of Habakkuk, tell you about them coming before they did. Around by 625 BC, they had tore Assyria up, knocked Assyria off, cleansed them out, murdered hundreds of thousands of them, butchered them, killed the whole Assyria empire, and then they'll come down to our land to get us, because we said we wanted to do the Egyptian religion after the Egyptians killed King Josiah, and then we would get on the Egyptian religion, and then the Creator sent for the worst of the worst, them folks, and then they came and chased us out the promised land. Them folks would come pull up on us. And we said that it was easier to live in Africa than to be dealing with them and that stuff. And we gave them the whole covenant, Ashkenazi and the Sephardi groups. And I'm going to show you Ashkenazi name too. All right. Jeremiah chapter 44, verse 15. Chapter 44, verse 15, 16, 17, and 18 is when we abandoned the culture and left our heritage to the Sephardi Jews that was there since 722 BC, when the king of Assyria placed them in Samaria, and they wasn't nothing but Amorites. And I showed how they came to Jerusalem. It wasn't nothing but their old capital and their own homeland as they have now. All right. Then all the men which knew that their wives had burnt incense unto other gods, and all the women that stood by a great multitude, even all the people that dwelleth in the land of Egypt, because we got chased up off the land. And Pathros answered Jeremiah, saying, As for the word that thou hast spoken to us in the name of the Elohim, we will not hearken unto thee, but we will certainly do so whatever thing go forth out of our own mouth, to burn incense unto the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, as we have done, we and our fathers, our kings, our princes, in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem. For then had we plenty of food, and were well, and saw no evil. But since we left off to burn incense unto the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, we have wanted all things, and have been consumed by the sword and by famine. So we had got chased up off the promised land into Africa. Man, we got chased up off the promised land. We got chased up off the promised land into Africa, because we said that we wanted to do the Egyptian religion. And if you go to 2 Kings 25, verse 26, and all the people, both small and great, and the captains of the armies arose and came to Egypt, for they were afraid of the Chaldeans. Well, the Chaldeans wasn't nothing but Ashkenazi. Ashkenazi made up the Chaldean army. And Ashkenazi came into our land, and then they chased us up out of there. They chased us up out of there on them horses, and we had to get on down. We had to get on down, and then they were settled in Scythopolis. They were settled in the city called Scythopolis, and the Scythopolis was head of the Discopolis cities, and those are the people that made up Jesus' membership, the people that settled in the land after the Babylonian wars. That's who Jesus dealt with. And I got videos explaining this, that he spent all his time in the Discopolis cities, and Ashkenazi was trying to learn our heritage then, and Ashkenazi, because them Sephardi Jews wasn't finna have no dealings with them, and then they started the synagogues. And then that's why Jesus said, those are the synagogue of Satan, who say they are Jews and are not, that Hebrews be confused by. Well, he was talking about those Scythians in the Discopolis that had synagogues. Some of them wanted to bust his head, and they didn't want him doing none of that magic stuff that he got out of Egypt, bringing that over, trying to do that stuff on them. And then a whole bunch of them loved him and liked him because he was trying to bring them into the heritage. But what they don't know is that Jesus was sent out of Egypt to trick them, because Ashkenazi was trying to do the Israelite heritage, and that them Jews from Egypt sent them folks out. We had got on away from Egypt when the Greeks came, and how the Ptolemies brought them Edomites there, and how they set up, they would set up schools, and then they had a school in Egypt called Melchizedek, and Jesus gonna be a priest and a leader in there, and was a parable king. And that's why come he came out and did parables on the Scythians. He did parables on Ashkenazi, because Ashkenazi was kind of slow, and they couldn't fight against him and get him caught up and stuff, him using them parables. And he tried to teach them another way that was outside the covenant history that we had abandoned to the Jews, because they didn't want Ashkenazi doing the heritage. But Ashkenazi would take the whole Canaanite, Amorite, Babylonian way over, as prophet Jeremiah had prophesied that Ashkenazi would take over Babylon, as did happen. All right, and even prophet Jeremiah, prophet Noah tell you, man, about this too. All right, so as you see, Ashkenazi tell you who they is. The kingdom of Ashkenazi was first associated with the Scythians. And then if you go in history, man, if you go in history to the ancient archives, the Assyrians gonna tell you who Ashkenazi was, and they gonna tell you that Ashkenazi was the Scythians, and that's what they call the Scythians. Ashkenazi, the Scythians, and Ashkenazi was called by their name. You see, Ashkenazi was called by their name, Ashkuz, and Ashkenazi called Ishkuz. You know what I'm saying? That's what the Assyrians called them, but they were Scythians. So Ashkenazi and the Scythians are one and the same, and them gonna be the people that chased us up off the promised land in the book of Jeremiah, after we said we wanted to do the Egyptian religion, and then we abandoned our heritage to both groups. But the most serious group that we abandon our heritage to is going to be those Sephardims, those Sephardi Jews, because they were Babylonian scribes, and for thousands of years before we even had a covenant, they had already know how to write and tell stories and stuff, and tell all kind of create myths and all kind of stuff, because they held control of the Babylonian gods. The Babylonian gods, Norajal, Marduk, and then that's like one of their main gods that they worship. A scribing god name was Nebo. You know what I'm saying? Nebo, it's supposed to be their god of writing and stuff. So these people would be in control of our heritage when we went into Africa to do the Egyptian religion, because the Egyptians tricked us and got us on a religion. We was on their religion for a long time. And even prophet Ezekiel will tell you how messed up we was on the Egyptian religion. I mean, if you go to Ezekiel, I think that's Ezekiel 23. So, it wasn't hard for them Egyptians to trick us and get us back on their religion. If you go down to 23, the word of the Elohim came again unto me, saying, Son of man, there were two women, the daughters of one mother, and they committed whoredoms in Egypt, and they committed whoredoms in their youth. There were they breast pressed, and there they bruised the tents of their virginity. And the name of them were Aholah the elder, and Amalah the sister, and they were mine, and they bare sons and daughters. This were their names: Samaria, that's the capital of the northern kingdom, and Jerusalem, the capital of the southern kingdom, Israel and Judah. We was on Egyptian religion from the tribe of Ephraim. And if you look throughout the history of the Tanakh, it'll tell you that Ephraim was wicked. Ephraim, the tribe of Ephraim, was so wicked that the Creator even said he was going to cut them off. You know what I'm saying? And we got cut off. It's a whole bunch of verses showing how the Creator was against the tribe of Ephraim, because it's going to be the tribe of Ephraim that brought that Egyptian religion out of Egypt, because they was mixed with the Egyptians, and then they put that on the northern kingdom, and the northern kingdom collapsed. And that's like, with that 10 lost tribes, they say, 10 tribes was taken to Egypt, Assyria. But if you look in our history, we'll just show only 3 tribes was taken. These 3 tribes could have been stationed all over. If you go to First Chronicles, chapter 5, and then as you read down, the sons of Reuben, the Gadites, and the half tribe of Manasseh, violent men able to bear buckler, sword, and to shoot with bow, skillful in war, were 40,703 score that went out to the war. See, the Syrians needed them to fight against Ashkenazi that was taking Assyria over, because I show you how Assyria let them folks come kick it in how Assyria let them folks about the Caucasus Mountain, come kick it in Assyria. Them folks come kick it in Assyria, and hanging out around there and stuff. And how they got so deep in Assyria that Assyria tried to get them up out of there, and it was too late. And then they started warring and stuff. And then Assyria tried to get us to help them fight them. The Babylonian scribes now wrote the history of different and stuff. They try to say that 10 tribes was taken, and they went into a magic water hole and end up in Asia, Europe, and North America, all kind of stuff, all kind of lies going and stuff. All right. And the Yah of Israel stirred up the spirit of Paul, king of Assyria, and the spirit of Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, and he carried them away, even the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half tribe of Manasseh, and brought them unto Hala, Hubber, and Hera, and to the river Gazon unto this day. They put them in their armies and had them fighting and stuff. And how Assyria in this last days got chased back into Africa. The fruit that was left that the Assyrians, that Ashkenazi didn't kill, you know what I'm saying? Probably could have been about 2 or 3 of them. And then they had to get on down into Africa too, because Ashkenazi destroyed their whole nation. That's why Prophet Isaiah said this, that it'll be a highway out of Egypt. All right, let's see. All right. In that day shall there be a highway out of Egypt to Assyria, and the Syrians shall come into Egypt, and the Egyptians into Syria, and the Egyptians shall serve with the Syrians. That was during the Satai history. They were trying to get them Scythians up out of there. It was too late. Ashkenazi took over and broke the whole Middle East off. And in that day shall Israel be the third with Egypt, even with Assyria, even a blessing in the midst of the land, and whom the Elohim of hosts shall bless, saying, Blessed be Egypt, my people, and Assyria, the work of my hand, and Israel, mine inheritance. Where they was trying to fight Ashkenazi, you know what I'm saying? They was trying to fight Ashkenazi, and Ashkenazi broke their back, and then came to the promised land and chased us up out of there into Egypt, because the Egyptians put us on a religion. You know, I don't know if they thought that would have helped them fight against them Scythians, them Babylonians. It didn't. It destroyed all of us. And we the last remaining, you know, because we still got a job to do. The Creator, you know, told us that he gonna bring us back, and this was punishment, this little 400-year bondage that we been in for fooling with that Egyptian worship and religion. All right, Hebrews, this is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. I think I uncovered the history showing that the Jews are not Israelites. That the Jews are not the Israelites. And some of you brothers be walking around, be talking about, we the Jews. We the Jews. You don't know what you saying. You don't know what you saying. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what's going on. Calling us Jews. And Jew mean Jebusites. You know, Jews are not the Israelites of the Bible. You know, and I just showed you how we ran into Africa during the Babylonian wars. And then I showed you how the Sephardi Jews, the Sephardims, are Babylonian scribes. They got everything popping now. And sometimes for you that don't know who they are, you are imprisoned by their myths and their lies. And everybody walking around with their lies because they the founders of the whole Western civilization. It's colleges, it's institutions of learning, all that come from them. They the founders of it. And this is an Amorite created civilization. America is. And it's an Egyptian created system that dominates us. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. I pray you Hebrews wake up. You know, that's like I showed this, how we only had 800 years in the promised land, that we couldn't leave no significant culture with that little bit of time. And how the Sephardi's, not counting how they held control of Babylon in its history and stuff, but starting from 722 BC when they was placed to now, they've been had our heritage for 2,740 years. That's a long time. So, you know, they done created a lot of history and a lot of myths during that time. And that's basically the history that the world live with. You know what I'm saying? That's the history that the world live with. All right, shalom. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. This is where you get true history at. Support the Israelite Brotherhood and subscribe on YouTube. Shalom.